Robyn Luff is the now independent MLA for Calgary East, and she joins me from Calgary. Hi, Ms. Luff. Thanks for being with us.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So if this is about dissatisfaction with your party, why aren't you simply resigning from caucus, or why didn't you originally resign from caucus? What does boycotting the legislature actually accomplish?
Well, this was an issue that I felt that I should be able to raise without having to leave caucus. I share the values of the Alberta NDP, and I wanted to continue to work for the party, to work for my constituents as a member of the party. But I felt, given the amount of control the party exerts over us in the legislature, that making a choice to not go was the strongest thing that I could do to enable me to be able to be a voice for my constituents.
I'm just confused, though. What does not being in the legislature actually accomplish, other than you not being able to represent your constituents?
Well, I think the point that I'm trying to make is that with so much party control in the legislature, whether that's our party or any other party, essentially what that does is it has the effect of shutting down debate in the legislature. Everything that happens there is predetermined, and people aren't being represented in the legislature anyway. And so by me not being there, what it does is it doesn't allow the governing party to use me as part of their machine to get their agenda through.
Wouldn't you also have been able to accomplish that, though, by sitting in the legislature and just not being a member of the NDP?
Yeah, but like I said previously, I didn't feel like I should have to leave my party to be able to voice these opinions. Part of the problem is that party control has become so absolute in our Canadian parliamentary system that even if you share the values of a party, you're not allowed to voice anything that isn't exactly what they want you to say. And I don't think that that should be the case.
Were you familiar with the concept of party discipline before you ran?
Certainly I was familiar with the idea that you run as part of a party and you run to be a member of part of a party, but I wasn't aware of just the real overarching oppressiveness of how strict party discipline can be. I understand, throughout Westminster parliaments in the world, there are other parliaments that have less strict systems than we do here in Canada, and I think it was a little bit of a shock to me to realize just how strict it was once I was in the legislature.
Can you give me a specific example of what you mean by oppressive?
Well,
that's a pretty serious charge.
Well, everything that you do constantly, you feel like you're being watched over. You feel like they're looking over your shoulder and judging whether or not you're living up to the party standards and whether or not you're saying the messages that they want you to say. And so what
sorry to interrupt, but is that oppressive? I mean, what it sounds like is a party that wants to appear cohesive and win an election. I mean, is that really oppressive?
Well, I would say so. I'm elected to be a voice of my constituents in the legislature, and there are occasions where I might want to say something that's not exactly what the party is having me say. And I think most Canadians would agree with me that when you elect someone to the legislature, yes, you elect them as part of a party, but you also elect them to be your voice.
So what would have happened if you said something that didn't toe the party line?
Well, I think we've seen what happens if you say something that doesn't toe the party line. There was constantly a threat that you would have your privileges taken away. So there's very few instances available in the legislature for an elected official to be able to voice their constituents' concerns. And the more that you say, if I were to choose to stand up and say something that wasn't what had been pre-approved, then those privileges would be slowly taken away to the point where, as you've seen now, I've been removed from caucus.
Well, you were removed from caucus following your decision to boycott the legislature, though. I mean, are you saying that you were removed from caucus for voicing disagreement with what your party stands for? Or, I mean, it appeared like the sequence of events was that you boycotted the legislature and then they said you're out from the NDP.
Well, I think I wasn't at the caucus meeting last night, and I don't know exactly what was discussed. So I don't know their exact reasons for why they've chosen to remove me from caucus.
Take me through the process by which I know you spoke with Premier Notley, but like how forceful were you in raising these concerns? Did you ever say, I'm considering leaving boycotting the legislature? You know, what was the conversation like?
So, I mean, I've been trying to raise these concerns continuously almost since we begun sitting as caucus. I was serving as the caucus deputy chair, and I wanted to have conversations within caucus about the issue of free votes. And when I brought these up with the caucus executive, with party whips, with the Premier's office, I was always told, no, we're not willing to even have that conversation. And I have brought it up with the Premier. I brought it up recently this week, and not this week, sorry, probably a week and a half ago now. And I reiterated that if something wasn't done to address these concerns, because I feel that the people of Alberta are not being represented properly, that I would be willing to go to the media and voice these concerns publicly.
And what did she say?
She said, I mean, I wasn't able to talk to her personally, so I was talking to her chief of staff.
Oh, because you just said you had
right,
a conversation
sorry.
with her a week and a half ago.
No, I apologize. I had a conversation. I sent an email to her and her chief of staff a week and a half ago, and I have been speaking with her chief of staff since then.
So have you ever raised these concerns specifically with Premier Notley?
Yes, I have done that about 2 years ago.
And since then, were you in constant communication with her chief of staff or with her office saying, these are the concerns that I have, I may be, leaving the legislature as a consequence or going to the media? Or was there a gap between when you first raised them 2 years ago and when you spoke to her chief of staff a week and a half ago?
It's been more or less an intermittent thing. So anytime that something came up where I felt that privileges of MLAs were being taken away, I would bring something up to someone in the Premier's office, and quite often my concerns were just belittled. The issue of...
What do you mean by belittled?
Told that it wasn't a priority. So, they'd say, well, is this something that really matters to your constituents? Is it important to them that they're being represented? Is it important to them that you have a free vote? Are these things that you hear about? We have other priorities. This is what being part of a caucus is like, so you should just deal with it, basically, is what I was told.
So what did you hope to accomplish by boycotting the legislature, by taking these concerns public?
Well, what I really want people to know, and what I really want Albertans to understand, is that nothing that happens in the legislature right now is not predetermined. Your voices are not really being represented by the vast majority of folks in the legislature. And so what I'm hoping to accomplish is to start a public conversation about what our Westminster Parliament can look like here in Canada. It was designed so that private members who are not parts of the government can hold the government to account and can freely represent their constituents. And I'm hoping to have a conversation about what are some steps that it might look like to get back there.
Do you have support from any MLAs, not just within your former party, but the legislature as a whole?
Certainly, some folks have reached out to me in the wake of saying of this coming out this week, including members of my own caucus, who have reached out to me privately to say that they support what I'm doing, and they don't want to speak up because they're scared. So I think that there is support for this sort of thing, but I understand party discipline to be fairly strict across all major parties, and I would be doubtful if anyone within either of major parties would take the chance to speak up.
Before I let you go, what do you say to the criticism? Imagine a world without any party discipline. What gets accomplished? I mean, you were elected as the NDP on an agenda. You put forth, here's our platform, here are the things that we want to accomplish. If you have zero party discipline and everyone just can do whatever they want at any time, and I take your point that you should be able to voice criticism, but if you don't have any discipline, how do you actually accomplish that agenda?
Well, I'm not talking about the idea of not having any discipline. People who run for a party because they believe broadly in the shared values of the party. And I'd hedge to bet that, if you allowed all free votes in the legislature, members would still vote with their party the vast majority of the time, and you'd still be able to get a lot accomplished. But what it might look like is you might have to slow down legislation a little bit. When you are putting legislation through the House at such a clip that people are not able to digest all of the information, they have no choice but to just vote along party lines. If you actually had to convince a majority of members in the House to vote for legislation, you might actually get better legislation. And I think it could look really positive for democracy in Canada.
Okay, I'm out of time. I have to leave it there, but thanks so much, Ms. Luff.
Thank you.